Formula Pod. Before we get into it, I owe you an apology. This one's going up about a week later than it should have, between scheduling on my end and just not being able to get everyone in the same room. It fell through the cracks, and that's on me, and I really appreciate you sticking around it. It's just me on the mic today. Mahira Nathan couldn't make it work this time, but I didn't want to let the British Grand Prix go by without breaking it down, even a week late. So let's get into it. Let's start with the big one. Charles Leclerc wins the British Grand Prix, his very first win since Austin back in 2024, which means a 624-day wait finally comes to an end. And there's a second milestone buried in this result too. It's Ferrari's 250th win in Formula One history, fittingly at the same circuit where the team took its very first win all the way back in 1951. And the context makes it so much better. Back-to-back DNFs in Monaco and Barcelona. Before this, then an underwhelming Austria. Leclerc himself wasn't optimistic heading into the weekend, saying the track layout wouldn't suit the car. Turns out, he was wrong in the best way. He led pretty much from the start, only losing the top spot briefly around his pit stop, and held it all the way to the flag. Afterwards, he talked about finally getting that feeling back in the car and finding something between sprint and qualifying. And you could hear how much this one meant to him. Let's listen to Charles Leclerc.
I'm so happy. It's been very tough the last few races, and I've been working so hard together with the team to try and understand what didn't make me feel comfortable with this car. On Friday night, I saw something in the data. I was like, okay, that might be something that is putting me off, and it's fine-tuning, but the feeling, it was just not clicking. And then on the Saturday after the sprint race, I exposed a little bit myself, saying I might have found something, but then it was all to be proven on track. And in qualifying, I felt a lot better, and then there was still the big question mark on today's race, and I felt a lot better from the first few laps. So I'm very, very, very happy. It feels really good to be back on the top step.
Now, this is the story of the weekend for me. Kimi Antonelli was sensational right up until he wasn't. He wins the sprint race, his first ever, and takes pole position for the Grand Prix. In the race itself, he drops to third, off the line, but claws his way past Hamilton at Copse. And by the time he pits, he comes out, he's closing on Leclerc, just down to 3 seconds. This was a real shot at the win. But then it falls apart. A broken left-hand wheel sheet forces 2 extra pit stops. And on top of that, he picks up 5-second penalties for exceeding track limits. A knock-on effect on struggling to turn the car with the damage. He crosses the line P15 from leading a potential victory to outside the points. That's a brutal swing, as you see in the sport. His championship lead over Russell is down 25 points now because of this. And coming to George Russell, picking up P2, and on paper this was the great result. He cuts the points gap to Antonelli by almost half. But Russell wasn't refreshingly honest about it afterwards. Basically saying he didn't feel like he deserved to be standing up there. He was actually dropping down the order after a slow puncture, forced an unplanned stop, and it was really Antonelli's misfortune and Verstappen's crash that pulled him into contention. Then Hamilton, pitting under the late safety car, handed him the position outright. Good result for Russell himself, wasn't pretending that it was a vintage drive. Let's hear what George Russell have to say.
I mean, after the slow puncher and pitting and going down to P7, if you told me I'm going to come home in second, I'd have been like, there's no way. You know, like I wouldn't have even been able to comprehend how those events would have unfolded. I think it was better today, but the performance wasn't good enough. And if I'm being brutally honest, I'm not going to fight for a championship if the performances continue like that. So I'm not coming away from this weekend satisfied. I'll take the result. I was probably more satisfied leaving Canada when I broke down from the lead than I am today standing P2, just because I probably deserve the win in Canada, and today I didn't deserve to stand where I stood.
You know, honestly, what I think is that with George Russell, he is a very lucky chap. Like, if you look at it last season also, when Verstappen or Norris or Piastri weren't winning, it was always George Russell who was there to kind of accept that fall and just kind of be there. Like, you know how you say, be at the right place at the right time? With George Russell, that has always been the case. But like, yeah, I really get his point, because you would rather want to gain your position on your home race on that podium by merit rather than just luck. So I got you, mate. But like, yeah, you've half your point. So that is where we are at the moment. But let's actually talk about the home favorite, Lewis Hamilton. A really mixed day. He picked up a 5-second penalty early on for a false start. And clearly, if we look at it, like, the tires just kind of is waddled a bit. But yeah, if it's a move, it is a move. And that is how Formula One works. But late in the race, he missed out on what actually looked like a certain P2. Which, again, thanks to Ferrari, they actually missed out on an opportunity for a 1-2 in Silverstone. And that would have been a really big story, especially for a 250th win, a 1-2 finish. There is no other way of show of force for that. But what made things a bit more spicier after the race was the stewards opened up a post-race investigation into a yellow flag infringement for which a while the entire result was hanging in balance. In the end, they issued a reprimand rather than a time penalty. Thank God. So the podium stood, his 16th podium at Silverstone. It's still a wild number for a driver, but this is Lewis Hamilton we're talking about. So again, we should not be surprised. He breaks his own records. On a day where he said himself he just didn't have it. But the crowd still gave crowd plenty to shout about battling Verstappen and the Mercedes drivers. Let's listen to what Lewis Hamilton had to say post-race.
We took too much wing out, had massive understeer through the first stint, had a jump start, just one thing after the other. Lots of lessons to learn from today. But yeah, we'll move on.
But before we move on, there is one topic I want to talk about which is too good not to include. The way this race ended. It was behind a safety car. And denying us a real fight for the final laps. Obviously, this drew me back to 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And Toto Wolff, out of all people, leaned right into it. Asked to defend the FIA's call to end the race under the safety car. He said, and I'm paraphrasing it here, that he would have preferred it happened back in 2021 instead. Because that one actually mattered. Well, I agree with him. Because if it was still under safety car, Lewis Hamilton would have been an 8-time world champion. Rather than now, a lot of celebrities saying he is an 8-time world champion. But in reality, he is a 7-time world champion, right? But yeah, it was a bit of a cheeky thing which he kind of came up with. But fair, coming from a guy who actually lost a title on the other side of the safety car controversy. He did go on to say that he understood that the fans want to see Lewis on softs, fighting Leclerc and Russell for the finish, but that sport has to follow rules rather than just chase the spectacle. Well, clearly, Toto Wolff said FIA is not Netflix. FIA is FIA. So they should come up with something like this just to kind of be like, okay, you know what? We follow strict rules. Realize if this was a Netflix, this would have been a whole different story. Where that last lap safety car, in fact, I would even think they would even put 2 more laps just for Hamilton to overtake Russell and Leclerc and get it all out there. You know? What do you think? Like, Do you guys agree with me on this? Like, I personally think this is gonna be one that is happening for sure. So let's actually talk to the guy who triggered the safety car, which is Max Verstappen. With just 4 laps left, he had a clear shot at the podium because he was P3, and he spun into gravel at Stowe. And this is what he had to say.
Yeah, it's the same problem again like in qualifying in Austria. You know, when the rear wing doesn't close fully, you lose a lot of downforce and you spin off the track. So, yeah, one time, okay, but 2 times, it's becoming dangerous. It's just painful, frustrating. You know, you're trying everything you can. Yesterday, of course, you already, I mean, the whole weekend I'm not happy with the car balance. I'm down on top speed on my side of the garage. Same again today in the race. If it was up to me, I would have started from the pit lane. But yeah, it's, at the moment, I'm honestly just looking forward to go home and not think about Formula One.
So as he mentions, the rear wing isn't closing fully, which kills downforce at the exact wrong moment. And this is the second time it has happened after the Austria qualifying. And you could hear how unhappy he was, not just with the incident, but with the car balance, the top speed all weekend. So Red Bull Racing, you guys got a real problem out here because you've got a really good engine. It's your chassis that's kind of playing its own set of games. But again, I don't understand this though, because why this is only happening to Verstappen and not Isaac Hadjar? Isaac actually finished the race. He was pretty much in good fighting stance. So I'm a bit kind of surprised, like, okay, why is it just a Max Verstappen problem than a Max Verstappen and Isaac Hadjar problem? But let's kind of see what Red Bull is coming up with. FIA has now kind of called up the technical directors of Ferrari and Red Bull to discuss about this mechanism of wing. But this is more towards about whether it being safe or not. Because Verstappen's 2 incidents alone has triggered so much of upheaval to FIA in terms of doing like, oh, this is not right. But guess what, guys? Ferrari is coming to Spa with a Macarena 2.0 version of it. So we don't even know how this is going to go, to be very honest. But I'm pretty sure Ferrari is going to come out of it unscathed. But let's actually talk about another driver. As in, he is also affected with the safety car, but this is a bit different. So, the safety car for British Grand Prix itself is one of the wildest because the first time British Grand Prix finished under a safety car. And Carlos Sainz is in front and center of the story. Under the safety car, lapped cars are allowed to unlap themselves and rejoin the back of the pack. Sainz did just that, but the problem was, at the exact moment the reference line was crossed. Technically, he wasn't a lapped car anymore because of the Silverstone's pit lane layout. Williams got the call wrong. Sainz went past the safety car when he wasn't even entitled to, and he ended up gaining a lap he shouldn't have had. The steward's answer was literally to add a lap back into final classification, which, as far as anyone can tell, has been never done in Formula One's 76-year history. He crossed the line P12 and ended up scoring down in P17. Stewards themselves admitted the track layout made confusion, and it's understandable, but the penalty still stands as a first. Wild way to lose a result. But seriously, if I, you could have made it a bit kind of okay. It's not that he was scoring a point. He basically, P12 is not like you're getting points, but P17, Also, let's not sleep on the midfield either. Racing Bulls back with their double Q3, which is now converted into a P6 and a P7. Alpine have arguably the driver of the day, Franco Colapinto. From P19 all the way to P9, that's 10 positions he recovered over the course of those laps. Right behind him, Gasly finishing P10 after making 5 places up himself. And worth mentioning, McLaren ran a special livery this weekend, paying tribute to Bruce McLaren's 1966 British Grand Prix. But on pace was actually a step off Ferrari and Mercedes. Norris ended up P4, mostly by inheritance from Antonelli's issue and Verstappen's crash, and he was pretty blunt afterwards, saying that the car wasn't good today and they've got a lot to improve. Let's listen to Lando Norris.
Considering how not nice it felt out there, P4 and P3 this weekend in the sprint race is quite remarkable, honestly. So, of course, we were lucky today, but the race is also about finishing.
Yeah.
It's about reliability and not making mistakes. I don't know what happened to Max and Kimi and stuff, but a mixture. A poor start today, an amazing start yesterday, poor start today. I don't know why, so we have to understand some things, but also the car was just it wasn't very nice in any way whatsoever today. So we have a lot to improve.
Another one to kind of flag before we wrap up the results. Cadillac. Still no points for them this season, but Perez called Silverstone one of the best weekends yet, running competitively with Haas cars for the long stretch. They're not front runners, but the gap to the midfield is genuinely closing up since the start of the year. And with more upgrades coming, I wouldn't be shocked to see them sneak into points before the season's out. But also, special mention to their 250th anniversary livery, like the US celebrated its 250th anniversary, and that was a pretty good livery though, can't complain. But it's just that at some point, because McLaren also was white and Cadillac also was white, but with the front wing and the rear wing in different colors, it was a bit confusing though, but it's okay. But before I let you go, can we actually talk about those Lego cars? 22 drivers and 2 officials, fully drivable mini carts, 28,000 bricks each for the drivers' parade. Hamilton apparently said beforehand it was the most dangerous part of the weekend, which, knowingly what these parades are usually like, it's probably fair. But guess who actually won that? Fernando Alonso. To all those Alonso fans, his 33rd win has come this way. And it's pretty funny though, because if you look at it, you had the FIA president actually leading the procession, and you've got Stefano Domenicali, who's the F1 president, as well on one of those carts. And randomly, these guys are encouraging each other to beach the car and then just lift that Lego cart up and get back onto track. But Fernando Alonso actually nailed it pretty well. But you could actually see more of those videos down on Formula One's Instagram. But it's something definitely to mention. A pretty funny one though. One more thing before I go, because it's genuinely got me curious for next weekend. It's not the drivers, or it's not their personal lives, so don't think about it. We're off to Spa-Francorchamps for the Belgian Grand Prix, and there is a real story building around how these 2026 cars are going to cope up there. Rouge and Radion, the famous uphill compression to Camel Straight. Well, there's a whole sequence that's taken absolutely flat out, and the new regulation has a problem, because these cars really can't charge the battery while they're flat out. They need braking zones to harvest energy, and Spa just doesn't give you many of those before you already are committed to the next power-hungry sections. Alonso's been talking all about this week. He's basically saying if you deploy your battery from turn 1 through turn 5, that's it. You've got nothing left on the rest of the lap. And remember, without battery, the internal combustion engine alone in these F1 cars produce less power than the Junior Series F2 cars. So you could generally see F1 cars looking sluggish on parts of this Camel Straight, which is a wild sentence to speak out loud. While a bit of this exact issue was already visible in Silverstone. Remember Hamilton getting swallowed up by Antonelli and then Russell on straights because his battery was empty. Spa is longer, even more energy hungry, so buckle up for what could be genuinely strange from a pure performance standpoint. So that's it with the British Grand Prix. Leclerc back on top after a brutal run. Antonelli's best weekend undone in the cruelest way, and a record-breaking crowd in Silverstone getting their money's worth. Sorry for the delay on this one, and back on schedule from here on. Until next time, this is the entire crew, which is just me today, of Formula Pod signing off. Goodbye and see you after Spa Francorchamps.